You know that person who goes completely quiet when something hurts them? The one who says, "I'm fine," and actually means, "leave me alone." Yeah, that person isn't being cold, and they're not broken either. In fact, there's a lot more going on beneath that silence than most people realize. If you're someone who shuts down instead of speaking up, welcome. You're about to feel very seen. Because today, we're getting into the psychology of people who go quiet when they're hurt. The one society calls closed off, but science calls something else entirely. Here's what nobody has ever told you. That silence isn't a flaw. It isn't emotional immaturity. According to psychology, what your brain does when you're hurting is one of the most complex emotional responses a human nervous system can produce. And the fact that nobody ever explained it to you doesn't mean something is wrong with you. It's quite the opposite. Most people simply don't have the language for it yet. Stay with me, because by the end of this, you're going to understand yourself in a way you never have before. Let's start with the thing everyone gets completely wrong about you. When you go quiet, people assume you made a decision, like you sat down, weighed your options, and thought, "I'll just shut them out." Like it's calculated, like it's a power move. But that's not what's happening inside you at all, is it? When you get hurt, something in your body shifts. It's not dramatic. It's almost like a quiet closing. Words become harder to reach. Your chest gets heavy. And the idea of opening your mouth and trying to explain something you haven't even fully processed yourself feels genuinely impossible. That's not you being difficult. That's your nervous system doing exactly what it was designed to do. There's a researcher named Dr. Peter Levine who has spent decades studying what stress actually does to the body. And what he found is that the freeze response is just as hardwired as fight or flight. It's not weakness, and it's not avoidance either. When emotional pain feels too big to process in real time, your brain pulls the emergency brake. It slows everything down to protect you. And here's something that blew my mind when I first came across it. There's a region in your brain responsible for producing language. And researchers have found that it actually goes quieter during emotional flooding. So when someone is standing in front of you saying, "Just talk to me, just tell me what's wrong," and you're standing there with nothing coming out, that's not stubbornness. Your brain has literally made words harder to access because it's doing something more urgent, keeping you together. You're not shutting people out, you're holding yourself in, and there's a massive difference. But here's where it gets even more interesting, because this didn't start recently. You weren't born like this. No one is. Babies scream. Toddlers cry on the floor in the middle of a grocery store without a single thought about whether it's appropriate. Kids express pain loudly and openly and without apology until something teaches them not to. At some point, something taught you that expressing your hurt out loud wasn't safe. Maybe it was a home where emotions were treated like inconveniences, where you cried and got told to stop being so sensitive. Maybe you opened up to someone you trusted completely and they minimized it, laughed at it, used it against you later. Maybe you expressed that you were hurting, and instead of being held, you got lectured or ignored, or made to feel like your pain was somehow the problem. So you did the logical thing and adapted. You got quiet, not because you stopped feeling, but because feeling out loud kept costing you something. There's a psychologist named Bowlby who basically built his entire career around one idea, that the way we learn to handle emotional pain comes directly from our earliest close relationships. And what he kept finding over and over was that when those early relationships teach us that being vulnerable leads to more pain, our nervous system doesn't forget that. It files it away, and it pulls that lesson out every single time something hurts, even decades later, even with completely different people. Your silence is not a character flaw. It's a survival skill your younger self built to protect you. And it worked. It got you here. And now here's the part that might genuinely surprise you. Because while everyone else sees stillness, your brain is anything but still. While the conversation is escalating and emotions are flying everywhere around you, you're doing something completely different. You're processing deeply, rapidly, and with a level of thoroughness that most people never apply to their emotional lives. Researchers actually looked at what happens in the brains of people who go quiet under stress. And what they found is that the regions tied to self-reflection, memory, and thinking through future outcomes are significantly more active than average people. Your quiet might actually be one of the most mentally busy states a person can be in. What's actually happening inside that silence sounds something like this. Did I contribute to this? Have I felt this before? What is this actually about? What do I want to happen next? If I say something right now, will it come out right or will it make everything worse? You're not avoiding the problem. You're stress testing every angle of it before you say a single word. Because for you, speaking before you truly understand what you feel carries real risk. So you wait until you have something worth saying. Most people see still water and assume nothing is happening beneath the surface, but you know better than anyone that still water runs deep. Now here's something about you that almost nobody recognizes, and honestly, it says a lot about who you are. Part of your silence is protecting the people you love. If you're really honest with yourself, you already know this is true. You go quiet partly because you know yourself. You know what lives at the bottom of that silence when the pain is fresh. And you know that if you open your mouth before you've processed it, what comes out won't be a conversation. It'll be something that can't be taken back. So you hold it, you wait, not to punish anyone, but because you care enough about the relationship to not blow it apart in a moment of unfiltered pain. There's a concept in psychology called the window of tolerance. It's basically the emotional sweet spot where real communication is actually possible. When you're outside that window, flooded, raw, too deep in it, no real conversation can happen. No one can hear anything clearly and nothing productive gets said. You already knew this intuitively, even if nobody ever gave it a name. That's why you wait. Your silence, as uncomfortable as it makes other people, is often the most protective thing you know how to do. You're not avoiding the conversation. You're waiting until you're actually capable of having it. There's a real difference between those two things, even if nobody around you can see it. But here's the painful irony, and this one stings a little. The one thing that would help you open up is almost always the opposite of what you get. People push. They follow you from room to room. They say, you can't just shut me out, or this is so unfair, just talk to me. And every single time that happens, it confirms the very thing you've always quietly believed, that your way of processing isn't valid, that your emotions are only acceptable if they're immediate, verbal, and available on everyone else's timeline. What you actually need is the hardest thing to ask for: patience without pressure. Someone who can sit in the discomfort of your silence and trust that you'll come back. Someone who doesn't make your stillness about themselves. And research actually backs this up. When people who process emotions inwardly feel zero pressure to perform their feelings on someone else's schedule, they open up so much more. Not because they were forced to, because for the first time it actually felt safe enough to. You're not asking people to read your mind. You're asking them to trust you, to believe that the silence is not abandonment, that it's just how you find your way back. And the people who are actually meant to be in your life will learn that. And here's the thing that's really worth sitting with. The thing that doesn't get said nearly enough. Because you don't speak until you're truly ready. When the words finally come, they mean everything. You've turned them over 100 times before they leave your mouth. You've checked them for accuracy, for fairness, for truth. You don't say things you don't mean. You don't weaponize your emotions to win an argument. You don't throw out accusations in the heat of the moment just to watch them land. When you finally tell someone how you feel, it's not a reaction. It's a conclusion. And that is genuinely rare. In a world where people say everything immediately and mean maybe half of it, you say less and mean all of it. The people in your life who have been patient enough to wait for you to speak know this about you. They know that when you say something matters, it actually matters. There's no performance, no noise, just the truth you took your time to find. That's not emotional unavailability. That's emotional integrity. And there's a difference. And when you put all of this together, something really important becomes clear. You go quiet when you're hurt because your nervous system is protecting you. Because you learned early that vulnerability had a price. Because your brain processes pain with a depth and a thoroughness that most people never reach. And because part of you is always, quietly, trying to protect the people you love even from yourself. You are not cold. You are not manipulative. You are not broken or difficult or too much or somehow not enough. You are someone who feels things deeply and completely and takes the time to understand them before speaking. And in a world that rewards whoever reacts the fastest and the loudest, that quiet, careful, considered way of moving through pain will never stop being misunderstood by the wrong people. But the right people? They'll learn to sit in your silence without fear. They'll learn that your stillness is not distance, it's presence, the deepest, most considered kind. And one day, maybe not today, maybe not soon, you'll find it a little easier to let someone in before you've figured everything out. Not because the silence was wrong, but because you finally feel safe enough to not need it quite so much. That's not a flaw you're fixing. That's healing. And honestly, the fact that you're here, trying to understand yourself better, means it's already happening. If this felt like someone finally handed you the words for something you've been carrying a long time, subscribe. I'll see you in the next one.